Good morning, Mr. Hudson.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What's
Good,
life
good.
like looking out your window? Because we're going to be talking about all the pictures on the wall. But first, what can you see from your window, Alan?
Well, the right opposite me is through the bushes and all that and the trees. If you go through, it's a Edith Grove. It runs onto the Chelsea Embankment, and that's where the Rolling Stones resided in the 60s. They lived in a little flat there, or a big flat there, and they were thrown out for misbehaving, and they used to play in the pub on the Well's End where I live, which was called the Weatherby Arms, and they played in there, the skiffle group. So, but that was before my time. But because I was a Beatles man then, I probably wouldn't have went to watch them. But and I really rigged my neck and looked further right. I could see the Stamford Bridge, which I used to live a lot closer to actually when I actually joined them. Which was a joy in my early days, but today I'm afraid it's not a very nice, not a nice sight. Not something I enjoy looking at, and even when I go past there on a bus or in a taxi or walking, I get the gibber,
Yeah.
the gibbers. But they're talking about that. Look through any window. That you hit on another song, which was a very good song when the Hollies were going very well with Graham Nash. Look through any window. It was called, wasn't it?
You are a connoisseur of music, a font of knowledge, Al. This is what I love doing, the My Life, My Music. And by the way, welcome all to another episode of My Life, My Music with the Governor, Alan Hudson. You just go off on one, you talk about the Rolling Stones, your knowledge, you go on to the Hollies. I look outside my bedroom window and I overlook the Clent Hills, the wonderful hills of Worcestershire. Um, Not as romantic as those scenes that you can see from your window, Alan, and those
I wouldn't call
memories
this
that
that.
you
This
have
is
from
not right.
the from the
This is not
embankments.
romantic. Trust me. Stamford Bridge is not romantic for me.
The embankments and the Rolling Stones were though, and
Yeah,
it's that history, isn't it? When you look outside a window, you look at something, you remember the history, and that's what songs evoke. Those memories, those pictures that you put up on the wall. There's a song that evokes those memories, those vivid memories of those times that are never to be forgotten, and those people that are so treasured in your heart, and we just put them on there. We glance at them, we put the songs on, we reminisce, and it's fantastic. But you
yeah.
didn't start putting pictures on your wall as a kid, did you? In your prefab in Chelsea?
No, no, no. I wasn't one of those
Mm.
kids. Maybe when I moved into my first home in Wimbledon, we used to put pictures on the wall but it wasn't until really that I moved. We fell in love with Seattle that it all happened because we bought a house you couldn't buy here for the kind of money that we had. It was a beautiful home, and I've made the bar, which become as popular a bar as any in Seattle for parties and everything else. It was a great bar, and I found and I had the music everywhere, pool table. I mean, it wasn't that. Don't it sounds bigger than what it is, but and that's when I started putting all the pictures on the walls of all my favourite people, and obviously Frank took the pride of place, and the Beatles and stuff like that. Um, I must tell you one thing, a little bit of new news, hopefully. Yeah. It's 50 years of my leaving Chelsea for
Yep.
Stoke.
Mm.
Well, my son made contact with my mate friend went to see the Beatles 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in the Wimbledon Theatre, and um, and they said they were absolutely marvelous, fantastic, and they were only on for one night, so we couldn't go. But we're going to go and see them in a place called Camberley in about 3 weeks' time, and my son spoke to their manager. I told him to phone their manager, see who managers, and see if we can go and meet the lads and, tell them a few stories about, the boys themselves, well, Shankly, more on the football side of it. And we're negotiating doing a day with the Beatles,
Wow.
with me doing a talk and then introducing them onto on the stage, because they were a big part of have been a big part of my life, So he's going to come back. He really liked the idea, and Alan stressed to him. He said, "You remember my dad's good friend George Best?" He said he was. They called him when he come back from Portugal that time when he beat the Portuguese on his own. They called him the fifth Beatle, didn't they?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
I called him El Beetle, and they called him the fifth Beatle. And then it kind of rubbed off, and there was talk, down in London. There was the George Best of London, but it would Peter Marinello, but it was kind of stuck with me because of the the way you live your life and
Mm.
everything else. And he said, "Me dad was, you could call him the sixth Beatle." So we're negotiating that. Them negotiations are going on, but that would be a fabulous day, especially we could do it on a day like today, and maybe do it outside and in a garden, and and have the Beatles finish the show off. That would be wonderful.
Because you've got some great Beatles stories, and when you were a kid, you used to go up to the record store, didn't you, and buy the Beatles album on that day. You were absolutely massive, massive Beatles fan, and you were. I mean, I remember all the headlines. It was Alan Hudson was the George Best of the South.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, the thing about the record shop, I mean, I was only a kid. I was only a
Mm,
schoolboy, even not even 14, right? Even when I was 10, 11,
yeah,
the Beatles were the thing. And the day of the first brought an album out, they would say this album's out at such a time. There'd be a big queue along uh, just along from me where I am now in the King's Road, where there used to be a record shop, and my mum used to walk me down there, and we'd get the first one out, and it used to be such a thrill.
mm,
And the sad part about this story is that I had every Beatles album, uh, and when I left Seattle, obviously the bird had flown. She didn't come back to England and nicked all my albums.
yeah.
So that was a bad part, the sad part about the marriage, that she nicked all that kind of stuff. But and I don't think that's right. It's just because I find that very personal. It's more than money, because you can't rebuy them.
Absolutely. And has that bird that flown still got those records? Because young Alan could renegotiate another
No,
deal.
no, no. But Al would have renegotiated that by now. The Arthur Daly of Bromley, yeah. Um, no, he would have sorted that out by now. No, no, behind my back and long, because I wasn't aware of all this at the time. But anyway, that's we only talk about happiness on this show, so we'll put that one behind us.
Absolutely. Someone Saved My Life Tonight, which is the first track, and memories of the great Robert Frederick Chelsea Moore.
Well, it's quite appropriate. We played this song on the show before,
Yeah.
and it's one of my it's one of the greatest songs ever, I think. And Reggie, we love Reggie Dwight and all his music, and but it's one of those that's. I remember when the pub down the bottom was open, and somehow they got it on the jukebox. No one would put it on. I was the only one put it on, and people were just looked in amazement. Who's this? What's this? What a song! And then all of a sudden they got and it was on all the time. But yeah, it was. It's all about the great Bobby Moore. Talked me into Seattle, and as I've always said, probably Waddington was the only other person, or my father would have talked me into going into the other room and speaking to the then managers of Seattle, Jimmy Gabriel, who was at Stamford Bridge that day. So it holds many memories, apart from being a wonderful song.
Absolutely, and a wonderful player. And of course, it was Bobby Moore that did say to you in 1972, before Alf banned you for 3 years, that you were going to make your debut against Northern Ireland against what became your manager later on in your career, Terry Neal.
Yeah. It was a strange old day. That I think that was you know, a sign of things to come
Mm.
with England. Uh, it wasn't as if he did any. It was not because of anything that happened. He just obviously Bobby come to me before the game, and I didn't know Bobby that well. He kind of took me under his wing, Bobby, and you know, I think I've told you along the way. We used to. When I was at Chelsea as a kid, they used to have a West Ham scout, and he used to get my father every Saturday and say, bring him over to West Ham. We'd have to have him over West Ham. And so I could have made a career under Bobby, and I often wonder what my life would have been like had I been that, because being in the dressing room with every day with certain characters is an experience,
Yeah.
and that would have been great with him in particular, more than anything. Yeah, I know that more Peter's and the World Cup and all that, but it would have been Bob. I've become very, very important man in my life.
And of course, the journey as a kid, I mean, Chelsea, a stone's throw away from your prefab. You were the most local of localist kids that ever played for the Royal Blue of London, Chelsea. But if you'd have gone to West Ham, that's from the west side to like the east side. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have had to get on the tube as a kid. It would have been an absolute journey and a half for you by doing your schooling and then going on the Tuesday and Thursdays to West Ham, whereas Chelsea literally is a stone's throw.
Well, by the time that happened, Paul, was
Mm,
the Tuesday and Thursdays were out the window, because I
got
was
you.
apprentice at that time, and he
Got you.
used to come over and watch our games at the place called Welsh Harp, which is in
Yep.
Hendon, which
Yep.
is which if you come down the M1, you'll see it on the right hand side. It's just off the M1 there, and uh, I used to travel to Welsh Harp every day, and on the underground when life was safe, I must add, for kids of my age. And but yeah, one of the things was, I think my father said, it's a lot handier for you to go to Chelsea. We were Fulham supporters, and um, yeah, I often wonder. That wouldn't have bothered me. It would have been a thrill, actually, to travel over there just to be in the same dressing room as the great Bobby Moore,
Yeah.
because it's not just being in the dressing room with him. It's he used to give me little whenever I see him, and whenever I was in the England squad, he would give me little hints of how to behave and all that. The one is true that you know put your country before your club is quite a statement, really, coming from the man um, who did so much for West Ham. And I mean, if you said that to a West Ham supporter, they wouldn't believe it. They'd say, "Oh, he said that about us, did he?" But he was just stating a fact that you become world known in our game, in any game really, in life. Uh, by representing your country. And although that really wasn't a thing with me, I was just happy playing football,
Mm.
and I was happy at that time. But you know, to think that I could have come through I suppose it's in hindsight, it's getting treated the way Chelsea treated me, which so unfairly and disgusting, really. That I suppose I would have chose that path rather than the one I did, knowing what I know now. Having said that, my couple of years with the boys at Chelsea was, I wouldn't have had three or four of these people on my wall, the Tommy Baldwins, of Chelsea and Osgood. They were a great part of my early life.
So your wall at home, how many pictures have you got? I mean, we've got 6 songs here to go through. We've already done the one
Well,
about Bobby.
yeah, I mean, the one by my writer on my desk is full of him. I tell you, I got Lee Rigby on there.
Yep.
Bless his heart. Uh, my favourite photograph, if I had a camera to show you, I would put is my father and my uncle George together when they were young men, and they were the two most important, played the biggest part in my early football life, and obviously from then on, because I always stuck to the way my father told me. I got underneath them, I've got a signed photo of Carlos Alberto, who I knew were playing it. He played with California when I was out there, and Carlos Alberto and Bobby Moore together in Mexico, which is a fabulous photo. Next to them, I have me doing the Matador or whatever it is to come and get it to Franz
Yeah,
Beckenbauer.
it's a great picture, that, yeah.
That is a good picture.
If you want it, come and get it.
If you want it, come and get it. But I don't think France wanted it enough, you know. But that was a great night, and that brings a great memory back. Not many of those players will have that on the wall. I know that. Above that, the Tony Millard, a great friend of mine, with me in Seattle, and a great fella called Dave Gillett's up there. Alongside him is a photo of me and Jimmy Green after scoring a 6 goal against Chelsea in the
Yeah.
League Cup, which is that was a night we were 6-0 up after half an hour, which was only about 2 months after I joined them, so that went down well. That was really a treat. Then I got a photo of my me in a blue shirt with my medical history on it. Really, that is a really good photo of every injury I've got. I've got on my left hand side, I've got the great Tony Waddington shaking hands with Tony Pulis. But this is a fabulous picture because it's Tony Pulis is in real life, and Tony's like in black and white. Is a ghost
Yes.
watching over him.
Yeah.
And my friend Bob Williams put that together, which was fabulous. I got one of shaking hands with John Hollins at the Victoria Ground when we played them in my first game for Stoke against Chelsea, which we won again. I think I played against Chelsea 7 times for Stoke, and we beat them 7 times, or six and drawn one. So that weren't bad. So that told you something about them getting rid of me. I'm just moving over to the big wall. It's mainly my father, me and Osgood. Great one of me and Osgood. Great one of me and Tony Pulis. Sadly, the Tommy Wisby from his funeral. Don Howe, a lovely man, Don Howe, who with a big grin smile on his face. But he didn't have a smile on his face when he was giving me a bollocking that day at Highbury. The great Bobby Moore again with his second wife. She was lovely. Tony again. John Robertson in our coaching school with Don Shanks, Frank Worthington. That was our coaching school in Alsager. Me and Gaza together in Stoke. And you got the West Germany program. Then you got the letter of George Best saying, I've got to put my glasses on for that one, mate. It's not going to be that long. And we got Jimmy McCalliog to thank for all this.
Yeah, we certainly have. And I have to say, Paul Weller, because in 1993, in his Wildwood album, there is a song called All the Pictures of the Wall.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly. Are only there to serve, remind us of it all. And I do love pictures, although in our house I haven't got many pictures on my wall. My wife won't let me. You're single,
Well,
it's a different dynamic. If I was single, I'd have them all over my wall, plastered like I did when I was a kid back in Highland Gardens.
I can't agree with that. I think she'd have to go before the pictures on the front. It's like my son with a dog.
Yeah. Has he still got the dog?
He's still got one of the dogs, but the
Yeah.
girl's gone. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the fiver went as well, that was on the wall, didn't it?
the fiver with Lester Piggott and Jimmy Greaves is gone. Yeah, I made sure of that. But the letter from George Best, which is in one of my books, in 9
Yes.
Cooper Street, Manchester, at the top, Oscars, Mr. Alan Hudson, Stoke City Football Club, 1st of September 1975. Dear Alan, You're still the best player in the country by a mile. Ram it down their throats where it really matters on the pitch. Your pal, George Best. So that's a nice touch on there. Then I've got several others. Me and my son, two sons. But a photo I love is George Eastham just having banged the winner in against our Chelsea team at Wembley, and I've got that on there because that led to. I mean, I broke my heart at the time, but it led to better things. Above that is me and Alan Ball coming off against the Germans. Below him, the great Tommy Baldwin, and next to them is Mum and Dad getting married.
Right.
It worked for them. It didn't work for me. And then I got me and my Billy Boyce, my friend from school. I still see he was the best. He was his cousin played for West Indies, and I think he would have he got the chance. But it was there's a touch of racism there. I got one with that, and one in Hawaii with Alan Hinton, Steve Buttle, who I loved, and the fella that played it for Manchester United, Anderson. You
Yes.
remember?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not Viv.
Willie.
Willie.
Yeah.
Well, he's sitting there with a glass, and we've all got a glass sitting around this bar, and it's a terrific photo of him and times we shared in Hawaii. Because that was Derek Dugan's on the left. He wasn't even Hawaii. And I got one of Johnny Hayes with when our Chelsea team won the cup at Craven Cottage with me and my brother and a kid called Rodney Udall. Yeah, me and George Eastham sharing that photograph that I love of him. And the last one there is me getting off the train at Stoke Station looking like I'm going to death row.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
There are some fantastic memories there, Al. The one, the song and the connection. I'd love you to explain this. The most beautiful girl in the world. I'm guessing it's the Charlie Rich song. And you used to be on in Eric Skill's bar, didn't it, in Stoke? But
it
the
did.
connection's Don. How do you link the most beautiful girl in the world to Don?
Well, Don Howe wanted the game. I did think about it. I wrote it down. I thought, what can I put with Don? Because Don was
Mm,
if if you knew Don, you wouldn't think of anything. You think like that. That would be Frank Worthington, wouldn't it, or something like that? Um, if Don had a choice of a woman, it would be the most beautiful girl in the world because he wanted everything done properly.
yes.
His coaching. He was a simple man. In simplicity is genius, and he played that one to the letter. He was, you know, everything he did had to be perfect. And I just thought about Don. I thought, I wonder what kind of woman he would have, and he wouldn't settle for second best, something like that.
Mm,
He should have to, and that if you played that, if it would have in Healthy Skills, his pub in Newcastle under Lyme, if you played it now, you'd think of Don. I would think of Don anyway, and that would be, everything. Everyone's got a song, and every place has got a song for me.
absolutely.
It's like I always say about the Witherspoons pubs. Every one I've been in, wherever it is in any part of London or the country, uh, I think it should be Eleanor Rigby because it's all the lonely people.
Yeah.
And that's the pubs that they go in. All the people that live alone, and they go in there, and they can afford to go in there, and all that. So it's strange how life I can understand why these people become great songwriters. And I think without fooling myself, I think I could have been a decent songwriter, but I just couldn't put no music to it.
You did send one to Phil once, didn't you?
I did, yeah. He sent it back.
But again, it's like the music and the lyrics. It's about partnerships, isn't it? Some can write songs, some can write music, some can do both. And it's like with a partner, you know, you and Osgood, you and Jimmy. You do need that other player. It's all
Yeah,
partnerships. What you have, Jimmy didn't. What Jimmy didn't have, you had, and so on, and vice versa. Combinations,
yeah,
partnerships.
absolutely, mate, absolutely. And it's but that one I can't get my head round how two men who just met like that, and in
Mm,
fact, I was reading his book again the other day, Elton. You know, the Watford book, and it still intrigues me in how he can get someone who lives such a long way away and send him, you know, the words, and he puts music to it. You know, unbelievable. It's incredible. And you think I only said to my friend yesterday, we were sitting out in the garden having a beer, and I said, you know, I put a couple of songs on. I said, you imagine if you were born with this voice, you know, and all the trouble you have to go through in being a footballer. You never got kicked singing, did you? You know, you
mm.
never got bad injuries singing, and you never had to. The only thing in them days, they had the same problems that we have with management and stuff like that. But that all got nowadays. There's none of that. You know, if you can sing, you've got it cracked, haven't you? You know. But yeah, I mean, as we said a million times, I remember once watching a film with no music, and you know there wouldn't be no such thing as the silver screen, really, if there was no music.
Absolutely, but in terms of Bernie Taupin and Elton John, you're absolutely spot on. How anybody can just send a load of lyrics by the post, and then he picks it up and he goes, "Oh, there's the lyrics. I'll just write some music." Sends them back. That's another song, and it's carried on for some time. The way that they made songs together, but were never in the same room.
Well,
It's
yeah.
incredible.
Well, can you imagine after Elton sent him the words, and then all of a sudden, the anticipation or
Yeah.
whatever of what he's going to do with them words,
Mhm.
and he comes back with the kind of music he come back with. Well, I'm sorry, the other way around, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Bernie sent,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you know what Bernie must thought when Elton sat down on his piano and started playing about with these words and come out with a kind of music. I mean, his music is, even things later on, without Bernie, with the Lion King and stuff like that,
Mhm.
it's just incredible. I mean, the fella is. But what would Lennon and McCartney be doing today? The beads that we've been through on the shows, the beads, things they put together, was unbelievable.
Again,
But
it's quite incredible because there's only a certain amount of notes, only a certain amount of words, there's only a certain amount of like noises that you can make, and they just make so many different ones. And in terms of like artists that
them,
you've
them,
just
no-
referenced, iconic.
yeah, yeah. Them noises are called sounds, Paul. A lot of people would call it noise. Turn that
One
noise
man's
down.
noise is another man's sound.
Yeah, yeah,
But you did
yeah.
say about Don smiling down at you. You did have that row, but that came after the 1978 FA Cup final when a reporter wrote something uh, that you told him in confidence. But again, he wrote it. Don's seen it. Well, everybody's seen it, and Don wasn't
Well,
happy, was he?
well, it was actually the Thursday night before the cup final, and I remember walking off the pitch at Wembley on the Thursday. We've been training there, and I wasn't in the greatest of mood. I think I'd been out celebrating getting to Wembley, and I was walking down afterwards, and I thought, thank God that's over. Walking down, and Tom walking towards me, and he said, "You all right?" I said, "You look a bit down." He said, "You worried about anything?" So I said, "No, Don, I'm fine. Everything's fine." I was a bit worried about. I still carrying the injury, which weren't quite ill. I was a bit concerned about that. But I said, if you can ease your mind a bit, Al. He said, you'll be playing Saturday. Don't worry about it. He says, I know you're still having a bad time with the other fella, but no, he said you'll be playing anyway. And on the Thursday night, a fella called Bob Driscoll from the Sun called me up, and we just had a ordinary chat like we did, and then he threw in the spanner in it right at the end, and he said, "So it'll be interesting to see whether you get picked or not." And I just turned around without thinking. I just turned around and said, "No, I'm playing." Don told me, And then woke up on the Friday morning, it was headlines.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I
Mm.
knew what was coming. And then, so therefore, Don pulled me in and give me it was a horrendous morning for me. But it was a good lesson. I mean, I was 27 at the time. It weren't as if
Yeah.
I was a kid and didn't
Mm.
know any better. But it was just somewhere. It wasn't a journalist I'd never known. Bob Driscoll was a friend of mine,
Mm.
and we used to drink together. But that's another thing going. But it was a lesson learned, and I walked out of Wembley after he got done and a bit downhearted and that, and he just gave me a pat on the back, and he said, well, he thought I was our best player. He said, well done today, you was our best player, and by the way, I spoke to your mate. You're off the hook. So I didn't even know I was on the hook, but he left me off the hook.
But
Right.
again, this is the thing, isn't it? Okay, at another level, I mean, that was like absolute national news. But the stuff that we do, there's been one or two times that we've done things or you've written stuff, and it has to be taken out because of situations that are going on, particularly in the World Cup. And we went around, we got that sorted, and another couple of items. And it's about trusting people as well. You know that whatever you do, if you're not happy with anything, we just take that out. It's certainly if it comes back to hurt other people or gets anybody in trouble. But unfortunately, with editors, I mean, that fella may have said that and he's gone, nah, this is a good scoop, we're running with it. And this is the problem with newspapers and the media per se. Tommy Wisby, you referenced Tommy with your photograph. Tommy was a lovely, lovely man. And the song that always reminds you of Tommy is Rubber Bullets by 10cc. Great band, great song, Al.
Well, yeah, yeah. You could. I suppose there's many songs you can uh, pick out of someone. You go back to maybe Johnny Cash or something.
Mm,
Someone who spent time, within the four walls. It's a horrendous time, but I like to think of Rubber Bullets, and because I love the song, I thought they were a great band, and quite fitting to Tommy. And I think it was one of those that would make him smile
yeah.
because he was that kind of man. He was a very upbeat man. He was a pleasure to be with, uh, and a tragic the way he left us. But he was such a great man. I feel blessed really meeting people like him. That your paths cross with. They call them gangsters wherever and
Yeah.
hoodlums, but this was a different ball game. The Great Train Robbery was nothing like that. It was, uh, like I always say, when I said to Tommy, I said, if you'd have met my dad, because he told me about a copper that was after him, and my dad knew the copper in Fulham. He said he was the one that wanted to nail me after the robbery. It was a fella called John Pritchard, and I said my dad knew him. So oh yeah, he said well I told me about him anyway. Um, to cut it all short, I said. Yeah, if you'd have met my dad, I said I would have had no football career. So he said, "Well, how'd you make that?" I said, "Because he would have been on the train with you." He said, "No." I said, "I'm telling you, Tom. If he'd have met you, he'd have hung up. He'd have thrown away his paintbrushes, mate. Don't worry about that, because it was one of those things where there was Tommy was the one that, well, he didn't hit. He hit him. He put a hand on the fella that said, "Sit down and I'll look after your family. Don't worry about that." And there's always one in the party, and there's one in the room that says, "This is a Queen's train kind of thing." And I don't know what is about, but he's a silly man.
Mm.
Uh, but that's just my way of thinking. And if you met Tommy, that couldn't happen. And they made it out, and they probably put another 2 or 3 years on. And then the fella died 5 years later, and they said it was because of that, and it was absolutely nothing to do with that. It's it was so unjust. But I know a little bit about that anyway.
Again, it was a massive story at the time. If you rolled it forward now, it probably wouldn't even hit the papers. would it?
Well, the reason it was a magic story, I don't know if we went through on the show
Yeah,
before,
it's
but
cover
he
up, wasn't
told
it?
me.
Mm,
Yeah, it was a cover up for the Profumo
yeah.
thing, wasn't it? You know,
Mm,
I think the all the politicians that were involved in that scandal said there's a fantastic opportunity to get us off the front pages, and it was to get them off and get the train robbers on, and that's why they made it as big as it was, the crime of the century, and that's why they got the sentence they got,
mm,
because it didn't deserve that. You know, I mean, all right, it's the Queen's train and everything else. It's at the end of the day, how many thieves are there in Parliament? You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
so but these no, it was a great shame, and but it it was sad. But I'm just glad I didn't know Tommy then. I wrote a letter to him once in prison without knowing it. Dave Sexton asked me to write to one of the great chamberlains. I said, of course. And then years later, Tommy said to me, "Yeah, you wrote to me, and Nick, you know." I said, "Oh, Tommy, said that nice to put a face to the letter, you know." And we become great friends. I mean, really great friends. You know, I used to go and see him a lot. He come over to Chelsea. I took him in the arts club over here. You know, in Chelsea, you know, and everybody met him. You know, they just loved him. He didn't want, he didn't never ever want to talk about the other thing, but he was just a lovely fella. He just loved it, and he was a big Arsenal fan, a big Sinatra fan. He met Frank in Vegas, and that was it. That kind of made, you know, that was the best time of his life when he was on the run and met Frank. So a lot of good things come out of it.
And that's again the nice thing about the podcast is that we talk about, the people, the person that you knew and loved, not the media perception of that person, but the real Tommy Wisby, the man that Tommy was, the generous man, the likable, lovable man that
Yeah.
Tommy was, not what again the media perceives Tommy Wisby and people like that to be. But
Yeah,
then again, they have their issues, and in many times, as you say, Ali, it's to take other issues off the front pages and darken the names of others to enlighten the names of other people. All that glistens isn't gold, and in many aspects, the pen is mightier than the sword.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you used to meet Tommy Wisby and then on the other hand go and meet the politician, you
Mm,
know,
yeah,
you know, I know you want to be with, you know, you
absolutely.
want, yeah, but that's the way it is. And then they make the films, don't they? And they make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
come out to be the villains, and I don't know.
Well, again, how many films have they made? I mean, they've made films of Bobby Moore, made Bobby to be something that he wasn't. Everything that you see on the telly isn't true. It may be based on a proper, factual person, but they connect the fact with the fiction, mingle it up to make a better story, and then people believe what they see on the TV or hear on the radio, and in many instances, nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, the typical example was
Mm,
a couple of years ago when my son, who was working at Burton, he might still be working there now. I don't know. He's a bit of a chef, and uh, I went up to see him and had half hour with Nigel Clough, and he's a wow, what you can't believe what a lovely kid this is, you know, and I'm so happy that he had a good career, and I see him on there now, and he's still doing a great job. And I'd mentioned the Damn United with his dad,
yeah.
and he just shook his head. He
Mm.
went, "No, Al, you know, let's not go there." So he wasn't happy with that film at all. Um, you know, so they got that one wrong also.
But again, I don't think anybody that was involved, whether it be the Leeds United players, or Brian Clough, the families, I don't think anybody was happy with that damned United. It was absolutely pathetic. And this is, I mean, another situation. The Crown I've never watched it, but it's not real that was on Netflix. It's just a story. But when you put things like the King, the Queen, and all the rest of it, and then you put Leeds United, a Brian Clough, factual people that played or were reigning or doing whatever they did, and then put fiction to it, how can you fictionalise fact? It's incredibly naive to believe that any of that is true, and
Well,
it's insulting.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm,
But I mean, and then you got the other side of it, the George Best film.
yeah,
My God, the fellow that played George Best with the greatest respect. George Best was one of the best looking fellas ever walked on earth,
yeah,
and that was hence Miss World and everything else and all the Miss Worlds he had and all the beautiful women or whatever. But he never played on that one. He never mentioned it. He never spoke about it. But and then as soon as I watched the George, I see the cover of the film, and I didn't. I think I might watch 5 minutes of the film and turn it off. I thought, what a load of trash
yeah,
this is.
yeah.
They could at least have got someone playing a part like a little bit Brad Pittish or something like
Mm,
that, and dyed his hair or whatever. Put one of the Beatles wig on him or something, But no, they do. They mess it all up, don't they?
yeah.
Uh, yeah, the other movie was the one in with up in Sheffield, wasn't it? Where they made about the Sheffield United supporter. Funny, who's the actor? Tony Curry's mate.
Yeah. Oh dear me. Oh, Bean, Bean,
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
him.
so even that, it was quite good. It was quite entertaining, but it's the truth element goes out the window, doesn't it? You
It
can't
does.
really say, I see that film. How about the way he was treated, and everything else.
But
But I just find I find Damn United. I found it. I never wanted to watch it, but I was around my friend's house one night, and he said, "Have you watched that?" I said, "No, no, I don't want to watch that. There's no truth in that." Anyway, I watched it, and I find it quite entertaining because I'd had a run in with Brian Clough myself, so I knew. And the acting was incredible. The
yes.
fella that took it, I mean, he got to get 11 out of 10 for that.
Mm.
Yeah, superb.
But again, it's people like you that know the truth, and then others, the vast majority, that don't, and they believe it, and you must sit there and think, oh dear. Documentaries as well. It depends where the documentary is coming from. Somebody that doesn't know the character does a documentary, and if you talk to the wrong people, you get a completely imbalanced view of what that person was all about. So I tend to kind of steer clear of stuff like that and just talk to people that didn't only make the headlines but wrote the headlines as well. Frank Worthington, one that wrote and also made the headlines. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Something that Frankie Baby never was. He was never lonesome tonight, was he?
Well, even when he was, he thought he weren't. He was, that was Frank, the lovely Frank Worthington.
Yeah,
What's ever been wrote and said about this fellow was, I love the reason I love Frank is because he never grew up,
yeah,
which is something that is fantastic in my eyes. He was still, even though he was played the game for 20 odd years, he'd been around the world. He did what he did, and he loved life, lived life to the full. He was still in awe of people around him.
mm,
To
yeah,
be in the company. He used to say my favourite player. When I met George Best the first time, he said I couldn't. I was speechless. And then he loved Alan Ball, and he would be in Alan's company. He'd hang on to every word.
mm,
And then I remember he played in a, a testimonial down at Millwall one day, and I was playing. I phoned him up, but it was through Frank Maloney, who was Frank Maloney at that
yeah.
time. Now
Kelly,
Kelly, my friend, and. Frank came down, and another friend of mine, Malcolm, was there, and he said, Frank come running in. He was late, and he says, "Where am I going? Where am I going? What's the dressing room going in?" He said, "I'm going into the dressing room where Hudson is." He said, "I'm not playing unless I'm playing with Hudson," because he knew that he'll get plenty of the ball off me. I just get the ball and keep passing it to him because I want him to have it. But that was Frank. He was still a child at heart. And that I think that's great, because we live in such as a line from a movie, that we live in such a cynical world, and not a very nice one at the moment with what the way things are going. And Frank Werben just was a joy to be around. Everything was, the world was a great place with Frank, and you could put music on and have a glass of wine with him, a glass of champagne, and he was a romantic. He just loved all the good things in life. He was absolutely special. And when he used to go on the field, Chris Garland made me laugh. He said when I played with him at Leicester, he says he used to get the ball on his left foot and go over on the other side of the pitch on the left foot where his fan club were in the corner. He said, and they would all be singing his name out. The game's going on, and he said, Frank's got it doing tricks, and I'm making runs into the box and runs out of the box. He said, I'm knackered on the other side. Said, I'm absolutely knackered. And he's playing up to his the Frank Worthington fan club in the corner. But that was the way he was. That was Frank, Uh, it's a dream, they come along as a dream. So you know why Don Revy don't like him now, because he was such a nice person.
And he was the ultimate showman, wasn't he, really, Frank? Because he was maverick on the pitch, maverick off the pitch. I mean, Tony Curry was a maverick on the pitch, used to blow kisses to the crowd. Tony had his,
Yeah,
his fan club as well at Sheffield United and Leeds and wherever he travelled. I remember
yeah.
Keith Burchin telling me a story about Tony Curry playing at Ipswich. Keith was a young kid and he wanted to know where the pitch was to have a look at the pitch there at Portman Road. He said, and he got an hairdryer in his hand. And, and, and as he walked out, he put this hairdryer up, and all the crowd was shouting. Keith said, I thought it was God. And many people in Sheffield believe that Tony Curry was God, and conversely, so they did at every club that Frank played for. He could make that ball talk. He was just the ultimate character. And as you say, such a nice guy. I had the pleasure of meeting Frank on a number of occasions and put on an event for Frank once. And, you know, he he made everybody feel special around him, and that's a tremendous trait in a person. And my memories of Frank is always he was always laughing. His shoulders had always come up like the honey monster, wouldn't he? And he'd always laugh. He'd always got something nice to say. And as I say, on the pitch, he always had something nice to do.
Well, it was. I hadn't seen him for quite a long time, and he took over what was it? Tranmere, was it?
Yeah,
He
he
took
did.
over.
Yeah, Tranmere. Yeah,
He
yeah.
was manager Tranmere up
Mm,
for. I wonder what he's like playing for Frank, and he was on the BBC with Grandstand at the lunchtime of the game, and they were playing someone in London, Tranmere. I don't know who it was, but and they interviewed him, and halfway through the interview, he said, "Well, what do you think today, Frank? You know what?" He said, "I really don't know." He said, "But," he says, all I can tell you is we can all catch the ball on the back of our neck." He said, "But I can't tell you how we're going to get on apart from that." So so you imagine, because in the coaching school, when we ran our coaching school, me and Don Shanks, I said to Don, well, for 10 minutes, you have to go through the thing before the kids, how you tie your boots up and put your pad and all this kind of stuff. I said, well, let so and so do that. We don't get involved in it. It's a load of baloney.
mm.
I said, but as soon as they got their footwear right, we'll have 10 minutes of Frank. And it's like talking about Sinatra, isn't it? We'll
Yeah,
have put Frank on for 10 minutes, and I just say, Frank, get up and show the kids what it's all about. It's making the ball talk, and it just stand there, and he'll go flicking it up and catching it and doing this and explaining what it's all about. Uh, and then one day we showed him the goal he scored at Ipswich, and they all had to go out on the field and do that. And Shanksy was the only one that got it first time.
fair play.
Brilliant. But that was you know, that's what people like him are worth, and it was nothing to do with, you never have to worry about money with it. We had no money, but what we had, we shared, and it was never, the money never come into it. It was all about enjoyment.
And that goal wasn't his favourite goal. He,
No,
his, be-
probably.
his best goal was against Queen's Park Rangers. I'm not sure if Shanksy played in that game, but Ian Gillard did, because Frank said to me, he was talking me through that goal against Butcher, and he says, and I flicked it over his head, banged it in the back of the net. He said, I turned around to Terry Butcher and said, if you're standing up there with all your fans, you'd have had a better look at that goal, son.
Yeah, no, he
And he
tells
goes,
that.
yeah.
He does that on his after dinner talk, doesn't
I
he?
did have the pleasure of having something to eat with Terry Butcher. I asked him, he denied that Frank said that. But again, Butch would and Frank would as well. But
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately, what a goal. But he said, no, if you ever see Ian Gillard, ask him about the goal I scored against Queen's Park Rangers. To this day, I've never seen Ian Gillard, but it must have been special if it was better than that. A
No,
special player.
I'm not having that anyway.
Well, that's
I'm
what
not
Frank.
accepting.
That those were Frank's words.
Well,
Yeah.
I scored a better one than that when I was at school in the playground. I beat 24 people. No,
But
that was. I mean, if that had been, imagine that goal. I mean, and
mm,
he could have done it. Had he played up front against Brazil in
yeah.
Mexico, and he'd have scored, and he could have scored. That could have been done against Brazil because I don't know what the Brazilian defenders
Mm,
have. I mean, they weren't that great, but they don't
didn't
think they
need
had
to.
any
Yeah.
defenders, did they?
No.
But you imagine him scoring out in Mexico 70, it'd be on every week in England, wouldn't it? It'd be on
Absolutely.
every
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they should have it on now on Sky. They should have it on every Saturday afternoon. This is what players were. You know, who could do that today?
And that's the thing about coaching today. We teach kids how to keep the ball and pass the ball back to the goalkeeper, but we don't teach kids how to produce such skill in the game, and that's what's lacking from our game. But when you do get rid of maverick players and you don't listen to players like you guys, that's what football turns into, sadly. Another player that, sadly, a genius on the pitch, probably off it is his downfall. Paul Gascoigne, is that all there is? Tony Bennett talking about his house as a kid burning down, and I suppose really in essence, Gazza's world burnt down in 1990 when he come back as a superstar and probably mentally couldn't handle that, and it seemed to be the downfall of Paul.
Well, it was. I don't think any doctor or anyone anywhere could ever tell you what went wrong with Gaza. It
Mm,
was. That was another case of not growing up, but
yeah.
in a very different way. I met him only the one time, and I found him a fabulous, fantastic fella. What a lovely. I call him a kid. He was a kid compared to me.
Mm,
Uh, but what a talent, and the song is so him. Is that all there is?
mm,
And if you knew the song by Tony Bennett, it's a great song where basically the title says it all. And when Gascoigne scored the goal against Scotland and whatever at Wembley, that was a highlight of the Euros. Uh, you can imagine all they would laying on the floor, get up and they'd interview him immediately after, and he'd say, "Is that all there is?"
mm.
Uh, uh, so that really is a gas. That is a Gaza. Is that all there is? And you'd like to put it to him, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And say, "This is what we've come up for you."
Mm,
And but what a talent! What a I don't really why he ever tried to do that tackle at Wembley. I don't know, and that was that was a thing that held him back. We'll never ever know. We'll never know how good this fella. Parkinson said it about me with and George with the booze and all that, but I think was a bit unfair because it was nothing to do with the booze. It was to
mm,
do with management. Uh, but we would never know how good Gaza would have been had he not got that injury, because he was doing things, and he done it when he went to Italy. And I see little clips of him when he was in Scotland. Although I don't know what you can say about Scottish football. It
true.
was, you still got to be blessed with that talent, and he was such a talented kid. But again, he played as if he's in every game. He played as if he was in a school playground, and it
Yeah.
was great. It was a breath of fresh. He was a breath of fresh air. Everybody loved to watch him. But it, it was funny how when he came to the forefront, it was only because I don't think Robson was going to pick him. I think someone got injured and he threw him in at the last minute. I don't think it was high up on his list that this kid's got to play. Uh, and it was only when he got there and he'd done it that people realised how good it was. Um, it's a little bit really along the same lines. I told the story about when Kevin Keegan bought Shearer. Um, when in the 1996, when Shearer went into the Euros with Venables,
Yeah.
and Venables, he even admits it. Alan Shearer admits it. He said he built me up. He said you're playing in every game. You're the best centre forward in the country by a street. He said so. Go and prove it. Uh, and then after the tournament, Keegan bought him, and he could have bought him actually for £5 million cheaper
Mm.
before the tournament, 5 or 10, I think it was. His price soared. So how did it take? Why did it take the Euros for Kevin Keegan to realise that this fella was the greatest centre forward in the country in Europe, maybe probably the greatest goal scorer in the world at that time?
It's
I mean,
quite.
if you were to sit down and put all these players together and show I watch them, all the goals, the great 100 goals. I say, well, his is the most phenomenal out of all of them. You know,
I think in
incredible.
modern days he's the most complete centre forward that I've seen in this country, Alan Shearer. And as you say, left foot, right foot headers. He scored all different goals, not just tap ins, balls that he got from the halfway line. He'd take on defenders. I mean, Shearer was the king, but at that time he was going
But
through a bit of a lean spell. I don't think he'd scored for England for about 2 years. Adin, you're right. Terry said, I believe in you. You're playing every game.
well, it's when
Mm,
you're playing for England, it's all about what the manager says to you
yeah,
and everything else, and
yeah,
uh, it's all about how could I? It's like with my last game for Chelsea was against Liverpool. I was useless. My first game with Stoke, I was outstanding
mm,
against the same team. And it's all about management. It's all about the manager giving you that confidence to go out and be at your
yeah,
absolute best. And that's what Terry done to him.
mm,
All right, it suited him because, like 1966, every game was at Wembley. So that was in his go. But he was an incredible centre forward. And what I've never worked out is one so small.
yeah, yeah.
He's
Mm,
only about 5'9".
mm.
He's not 5'10", I don't think, and he got above people. His jumping ability and heading ability, his all round game was phenomenal,
Yeah, absolutely. You
phenomenal,
you don't have
phenomenal.
to be 6'6" to be decent in the air. It's all
No,
about, again, as you know, well, it's about your timing, isn't it? And
well, yeah, I watched him again yesterday. The Manchester City man that scores all the goals,
never
and he
touches the
just
ball.
can't head the ball. He can't head it. They crossed two balls to him in the head. He tried to do an overhead kick, but he was that embarrassed with his heading, and he even admitted it last year. He admitted. He said, when I was in back home playing, he said I have to thank Solskjaer. Because he said to me, well, you're going to have to practice your heading. He said, you're great at everything else. He said, but you can't head the ball. And he said, I still can't head the ball properly. And you can see that. I think he played in one game last year in the Champions League. He missed about 4 headers from
Yeah,
about 6 yards out. Amazing. Yet he's got this record of goals. But Shearer, he wouldn't compete with Shearer.
completely
Uh,
different player, wasn't he?
well, you've
Mm,
got to you said it. He's
yeah,
the most complete all-round centre forward
yeah,
that probably ever lived. Not
yeah.
about now. You just never see nothing like it. All right, he's not going to score the Jimmy Greaves goals.
Mm. He'd
Or
run it
maybe.
close though, Dennis Shearer. I mean,
Well,
you look at
yeah.
Shearer's got, I think, 280. I mean, Jimmy's in a world of his own, complete world. Jimmy Greaves is the greatest, bar none. But in modern times, I mean, it always annoys me because when they look at the records, they just look at Premier League records, and
Yeah,
I remember talking to Letizia, and they says, yeah, but they took about 20 off Alan as well, you know. And you look at, I think he scored about 284 goals in like
yeah,
First Division and Premier League, where they only
yeah,
put his Premier League goals on. So I mean,
yeah,
I mean, Shearer was some player, and he had
yeah,
that really bad injury as well, Al, didn't he? So he was out for some time.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so
I,
you know, if you put all of that into the mixing pot, then blimey, again, I think if you're looking in terms of central strikers, proper what I'd call centre forwards, I'd put Shearer and Ronaldo as the best that I've seen in my lifetime.
yeah, I think Shearer edged it actually.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah, because he didn't always play in the best teams and
no,
everything else.
mm,
But no, I think uh, for pound for pound, I was saying goalkeepers. You know, Peter Bonetti, pound for pound, was as good as anyone.
yeah,
He was lightweight compared to all the modern goalkeepers,
mm,
especially when Michael come along and people like that. They all had to be 6'4" or whatever. But no, Shearer for me, mate. I do have to think of a song for him.
yes,
I'll have to write one for him.
yeah, send it to him.
You put the music to it, Paul.
I'll be your Elton John, you're the Bernie Taupin, and we'll send it for Shearer. I'll hit him up on Twitter and say Alan Hudson's writing a song for you.
Or we might take that the wrong way.
No, it's in a good way, Alan.
Yeah,
You are
that,
simply the best. Tina
yeah,
Turner beat us to that one, but we're going to write another one for you.
yeah. We're right. Another one to
Some
cover all that.
Absolutely somebody else who was simply the best, and the final track that you've got today, Al, Tony Waddington, Holding Back the Years, Simply Red. Uh, a great song, and for a manager that arguably is up there with the top managers that we've ever had. But as you've always maintained, when you're managing or playing for Stoke, you're not going to get the recognition or the titles than if you were a manager of Manchester United or a top club. And Tony was so loyal to Stoke City. What was it, 17 years their manager?
Yeah, yeah. He was far too loyal for his own good, like I was really in
Yeah.
many ways. But uh, when you look at the big picture with people talk about Tony, they won the League Cup, they beat us in the League Cup. It was a uh, great year for them, not for us. But when you go back to when he took the job over at Stoke and what they had, what he had to play with, they named the back four or back eight, the Waddington Wall, and he had to go through all these hard times which managers go through a day, and they complain about, well, we haven't got this, we haven't got that, and got, all the excuses come out. Well, he never made no excuses. He went and got people like Morris Setters. He had a good rapport with Busby, so he got a lot of old Manchester United players that help him up. They're only up the road, and I don't know why Stoke City hate Manchester United so much, because
Mm,
they kept them in the league for with their ex players, the great Dennis Violet and people like them, the magnificent players. But he's just all round. I think the reason I love him so much was going back to the Don House song, the most beautiful girl in the world. I think that would have been Tony's as well,
mm,
because he loved everything about life. He was, there had to be lunch. If we're going out for lunch, it would be memorable. I'd have a story for every lunchtime we had, because he was with somebody that didn't know him, and these players that didn't know him at Stoke, several didn't like him, and I just laughed at them. They couldn't understand how we got on so well, but we were so alike. We just liked all the best things in life, and once you got him outside his office, mate, he was a different animal,
mm,
and that's the way life should be. You play on a Saturday afternoon. You're only looked at in our game, where certain players like Dave Sexton was the worst at it. He used to judge you what you done on a Monday to Friday, how you live your life. Well,
mm.
there's no right way to live your life. I mean, any. whether it's a singer or whatever, a movie star, whatever. As long as you deliver the goods on a match day or whenever you're supposed to do it, that's how you should be judged. And that's all that Tony done. He judged you on what you did for him, not what you did on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in pubs or whatever, uh, because he liked to drink himself.
Yeah.
But he worked, you work hard, you play hard. It's as simple as that. And I remember Alan Hinton wrote something in his book about me. He said, you couldn't believe this fella, the way he lived his life. He said, but every day we edged towards match day, you could see him coming round. And by the time the kickoff came, he was ready to go. And that is the way football should be. Um, I'm not saying go out and all be a hellraiser,
Mm.
but I wasn't a hellraiser by any stretch of the imagination. But that's the way life should be, and that is why Tony was so good at his job. And it's what he might have done. The saddest thing with me with Tony is, he was so close to his dream when it all went wrong at Stoke, when the roof fell off. He had such plans for that club, and he would have reached them. He would have reached his goal. Um, it's the saddest. It's just the greatest, saddest thing that ever happened.
And he was Mr. Stoke City. He bought Hollywood, if you like, as Hollywood now with Wrexham. He brought Hollywood to Stoke City, didn't he? The rest of the world 11. He brought back Stan Matthews. As you say, he loved his inside forwards. He had a great connection with United, being a former player there. He was a kid there, wasn't he, at Man United, Waddington.
Yeah,
I mean, he even had an audience with the Pope. Tony wouldn't go and do the training that day when he wore to the pitch for you. How many tickets? Al, the usual. There you go.
yeah.
And like he was a man of he seemed to be a man that chose those words very, very carefully, very, very considered, and was, as you've always said about him, simplicity was genius. Sometimes I'm guessing with Waddington, he wouldn't even need to say anything. You could just read his face.
Well, he was. Yeah, he would be some poker player. I know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But no, he was. You don't know what you're getting when you first meet him. You meet a fellow who's. I've always said about Tony. Tony's strength that he could mix it in any company.
Mm,
I've seen him out with, but fans have come up to old Stoke fans have come up to me and told me, after games sometimes he's said to fans, "How you getting home?" and at late at night and all that. He said, "Well, we got a couple of seats left on the bus. You get on the." They said, "Yeah, what with the players?" They said, "Yeah, let's get you home. You come all this way to watch us play." And he's also a good fannier. He could flannel anyone.
mm,
His Stanley Matthews story is classic when Stan, I mean, he was in his 50s at this time, Stan, and when he done it to me, I was in mid-20s.
yeah.
But he said to Stan said, I'm not fit for tomorrow. He said, well, Stan, I want you to come along. He said, just come to the game. He said, you don't know by the time you get there. He said, and he was sitting on the bus on the way going up the M6, playing at Burnley or something, and he went and sat next to him, and he said to him, "How are you?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "I don't think I'm all right." He said, "But it's not bad, but I don't think I'll be right." And he said, "Look at this down the motorway." He says, "Look at all these people, all got Stoke City flags hanging out the windows and tooting the bus as they went by." He said, "Yeah." He said, "It's fantastic, boss, isn't it? They're all going to watch us today." He said, "No, Stan, they're all coming to watch you."
Yeah.
And he went, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, they're coming to watch you play. So you can't really disappoint them, you know." And then by 20 minutes later, they're at the Burnley ground. He's having a look at the pitch, and he's like the ringmaster now, Tony, to the crowd, with only one standing Matthews. The next thing you know, he's got his boots on and he's out there. So that was another part of his management. These are all
Yeah.
managerial secrets. I mean, I'm sure a lot of managers have done this throughout time. but he was a master at it. And he tried it with me with the Liverpool game, but he come up trumps by watering the pitch because there's no way I would have played.
But again, what we always touch upon in My Life, My Music, Al, is about management and how fantastic and how important managers are to players. Let's just finish on that lovely story. Who was that manager that picked up the phone and it welcomed him to being a first division manager and says, when you put the phone down, don't trust anybody. I remember you telling me that story before, but I can't remember who the manager was.
Yeah,
Enlighten me.
that was a great Joe Mercer.
Got ya.
Yeah, and
Tell
Joe
that story.
Mercer.
Tell that
Joe,
story again. I love it.
yeah, Joe Mercer was what it would have been. I don't know if it had been in Man City at the time. Um, but he just got the job, and so he obviously known about town, and he got the job, and the phone rang, and so they put Joe Mercer through to him, and they obviously got on. He knew him, and he did. Congratulations, hope you do a great job. And went through, they were the same two peas in a pod, two football gentlemen, and
Who was the other manager? Can you remember?
um, Bill Nicholson.
Oh, okay.
No, I got a photo of Tony, Joe Mercer, Bill Nicholson opening a pub in Stoke, and for my friend Jerry, our friend Jerry Bridgewood, and he had a pub, and he asked Tony to go and open the pub, and Tony said, "Yeah." Anyway, Jerry couldn't believe it, so he told everyone's going, just expecting Tony to come along, and he turned up with Bill Nicholson and Joe Mercer. I mean, what a, you know. So that was it. That took the pride of place on Jerry's wall. But those were the people. Those were the managers. The old time managers. They were the ones that us kids wanted to play for. Not the new ones. We were unfortunate that we got all the one with the tracksuit managers come in. And the coaches and all that. Which I'm not a lover of. But them managers. You've had Stevie Perryman on your show.
Yeah,
I've done the thing with Stevie, and the Bill Nicholson stories and everything else. It's all about management, mate. It's all about they
absolutely.
can make or break you.
And I wonder how long that conversation went on for, because it was quite a conversation, wasn't it? And then Bill said to him, "Don't trust anybody in this job," didn't I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He said, "Let me give you." No, it was Mercer. Mercer said, he said, "Congratulations, Tony." He said, "I hope everything goes well for you, but let me give you one piece of advice." He said, "And this is the best advice I can give." And Tony said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, don't trust anybody in this job." He said, "When I put that phone down, that includes me." So, that is from a friend,
Yeah, yeah,
and in a it's a dog eat dog world, and that's the way it was, it's a fair fight after that, isn't it?
yeah,
You were warned.
yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
but that's what managers were like in them days, and it was a sorry state that it's changed not for the better.
Absolutely, 100%, Al. Thank you again for your time. It's always a pleasure, Al, taking a trip down memory lane and remembering those songs that evoke such vivid memories of the good old days. What you got on today, mate? Much?
Well, it's a bit of racing, bit of football, and it was important day yesterday when I was very sad that Luton
Mm,
kicked the bucket.
and Burnley?
They had well, Burnley were always going to struggle.
Mm,
He's tried to revamp that side, and he had a good go at it, trying to play football and play the Man City way, but you can't do that.
mm,
You actually can't do that with you got the first couple of years in this league. You got Forest have done great.
yeah.
When you think where they were when Steve Cooper took them over, bottom of the championship, and that got them promotion, and that look at the way he got treated.
Mm,
Um, you know, and they stayed up. And Luton done fantastic. I watched nearly most of their games what have been televised, and how they got beat at Arsenal at home 4-3, I think it was. They lost another one to Liverpool, Man City
Yeah.
4-3 in the last kick of the game, and
Mm.
uh, you know, they've had a terrific season, and they had about 8 first teamers out for about three
Yeah.
or 4 or 5 weeks, and talk about kick you when you're down, And they did lovely way. They were 1-0 up yesterday. I was sitting outside with my friend, and I went, "Oh, let's just hope they can score a second. They deserved. They'll go down. I love the manager as well. He was in tears yesterday,
Yeah.
but he'll bounce back a better man. He'll learn from his mistakes, and he's made mistakes with certain players he brought in. One good thing about it, he, he kind of reinvented Barkley.
Yep.
The kid had lost his way at Chelsea and wherever he was, at Everton. He lost his way completely, and he's got him back and said, "Look, he's filled in with the confidence and responsibility. He gave him more responsibility, is a word really."
Mm.
And he done a terrific job, the Luton manager, but he will learn. There's not a lot he could do about it because
Mm.
he was. We all know they're cash strapped and everything else, but they'll bounce back next season. They're a certainty to bounce back and be a better club for it.
Absolutely. The three that went down, maybe next year, the three that will be coming back up. That just seems the
Well,
way in football today. Mm.
absolutely. I think Burnley, they didn't lose any ground as they're getting relegated. I think they'll be better for it
Yeah.
as well. They'll be better prepared for next year. The manager would have learned. I'm not really a lover of him and the way that they go about it, the Man City way,
Mm.
and keep. These people still think that goalkeepers can play football, but I don't get that part of it.
Same here.
Yeah, no, it's like putting a pair of gloves on their feet, isn't it? Turn it in.
Sometimes they pass the ball as though they have got gloves on the feet.
Well, absolutely. When they do the old yo hand.
It's the funniest thing ever on a pitch, any a goalkeeper trying to do a Cruyff turn.
Yeah,
Oh
unbelievable,
my
mate.
days! You
Unbelievable.
never got it in your days, Al. You had proper goalkeepers, you had proper players, and it's always
Well,
brilliant to
I
remember
must
them.
leave on that. It did happen in my day
Who?
because I remember one day we played at Stoke, and I know we've had our little run-ins and everything else, but someone punted a ball through a Newcastle player, and Alan Gowling chased it, and Peter Shilton come out to kick it and kick the floor. And he was laying on the floor, and Alan Gowling walked it in the net. Instead of winning 1-0, we drew 1-1, and we left Peter on the floor, and we went in at the shower. But that's what they're like with their feet.
And what did Gowling say to Shield when he walked past? What are you doing, son? Looking for worms? Till next time, mate. All the very best.
Well done, Paul.
Speak to you soon, Al. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Bye
Bye bye
bye.
now. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.